There's a story about a man who once tried to hold onto water with his hands. He cupped his palms tight, desperate not to lose a single drop. But the harder he squeezed, the faster it slipped away. At some point, exhausted, he opened his hands completely, and only then did he realize that the water resting lightly in his palms was enough. That's the quiet paradox of letting go. You can't hold peace while clinging to what hurts. You can't move forward while gripping the past with trembling fingers. Most of us don't realize how heavy our attachments are until life forces us to release them. We hold on to people, to identities, to dreams that once made sense but no longer fit. We tell ourselves that if we just try harder, love deeper, explain longer, maybe we can fix what's already gone. The truth is that letting go isn't failure, it's psychological evolution. Our brains are wired to resist loss. According to behavioral psychology, the pain of losing something is felt roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something new. That's called loss aversion. It's why we stay in relationships that drain us, jobs that no longer inspire us, or cycles that have already ended. We mistake familiarity for safety, and safety, even when it's suffocating, feels easier than the unknown. Letting go begins when you realize that clinging is a form of fear. Fear that without what you're holding, you won't know who you are. Fear that the space left behind will never be filled again. But what if the space isn't meant to be filled immediately? What if it's meant to breathe, to heal, to make room for something wiser? Psychologists talk about identity attachment, the way we tie our sense of self to external things, our roles, relationships, possessions, or memories. When those change, it feels like we're losing a piece of ourselves. That's why endings hurt so deeply. It's not just the loss of a person or dream. It's the loss of the version of you that existed with them, the self that once belonged somewhere. But here's something rarely said. Letting go isn't a single moment. It's a process almost neurological. When you release something, your brain has to rewire its expectations. The mind doesn't like blank spaces. It searches for patterns, closure, and meaning. That's why we replay conversations in our heads, imagine alternate endings, or wonder what we could have done differently. We're not weak for doing that. We're human. We crave coherence. Yet, healing doesn't happen in explanation. It happens in acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It means stopping the argument between reality and imagination. It means saying, this is what happened instead of this shouldn't have happened. And that shift from resistance to recognition changes everything. There's something profoundly psychological about surrender. Neuroscientists have found that acceptance reduces activity in the brain's amygdala, the part responsible for fear and emotional alarm. When we let go, we're not giving up. We're turning down the inner volume that keeps us stuck in fight or flight. That's why peace feels quiet. It's not the absence of emotion, it's the recalibration of it. Imagine standing in front of a door you've tried to open for years. You've twisted the handle, knocked, cried, begged, but it never opened. And one day you finally stepped back, not in defeat, but in realization. You see that the door wasn't locked to punish you. It was closed to protect you from the wrong room. That's what letting go often is. Learning that closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from walking away. But we rarely walk away without guilt. Guilt whispers that we're betraying someone. Shame tells us we should have done more. Hope argues that maybe one day it'll return. And so we wait, half alive in emotional limbo. Psychologists call this the ambiguous loss, mourning something that hasn't fully ended or something that ended without clarity. It's the hardest form of grief because there's no funeral for what could have been. To truly let go, you have to learn emotional differentiation, separating what you feel from what's true. You can miss someone and still know they're not meant for you. You can grieve a past version of yourself while embracing the one you're becoming. You can love a memory without resurrecting it. That's emotional maturity, holding contradiction without collapsing under it. So many people think letting go means losing compassion. It doesn't. It means loving from a distance that protects your peace. It means saying, I wish you well without needing to walk the same path anymore. Compassion without attachment. That's not coldness. That's clarity. And clarity feels strange at first because it's calm. We're addicted to emotional noise. We confuse chaos with connection. So when calm finally arrives, we mistake it for emptiness. But peace is not the absence of emotion. It's the absence of reaction. It's the point where you no longer need to prove, justify, or chase. You'll know you're beginning to let go when you stop rehearsing all scenes. When your energy shifts from trying to fix the past to understanding it. When your curiosity turns from, why did this happen, to what can I learn from this? That's when wisdom begins in the space between what was and what's next. There's a subtle truth buried in psychology. The mind heals through narrative. When we retell our pain with new meaning, we reclaim authorship. We stop being the victim of the story and become the narrator who understands its lesson. That's why journaling or talking helps. It rewrites memory from a survival lens to a learning one. In one study, people who wrote about emotional experiences for just 15 minutes a day showed increased well-being and decreased anxiety within weeks. Not because writing erased the pain, but because it organized it. That's what letting go really is. Emotional organization. Taking the chaos of memory and turning it into understanding. Still, there's another layer. The physical body. We store emotional tension in muscles, posture, and breath. That's why some people cry during yoga or after a long walk. The body remembers before the mind does. Letting go, then, isn't just mental. It's semantic. It's unclenching the jaw, softening the shoulders, exhaling what you've been holding too long. The psychology of letting go is also the psychology of trust, because to release something, you must trust that life continues beyond it, that the unknown isn't punishment, it's potential. We forget this because loss distorts perspective. When something leaves, we imagine only emptiness ahead. But time reveals that every ending quietly plants the seed of a beginning. Think about every heartbreak, every failed dream, every closed door that once broke you. You didn't know then that it was guiding you elsewhere. You only saw the collapse, not the clearing it created. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It gives it purpose. Our attachment to control is another obstacle. We believe we can manage outcomes. If we say the right thing, try hard enough, we can shape the future. But control is often an illusion built on fear. True strength lies not in forcing things to stay, but in trusting that what's meant to remain will remain without pressure. That's what spiritual psychology calls non-attachment, engaging deeply, but without the need to possess. There's beauty in impermanence if you look closely. A sunset doesn't apologize for ending. A flower doesn't mourn when it wilts. We too can learn to honor moments for what they were, instead of resenting them for not lasting longer. Every season has its time, and so do people, memories and phases of you. Sometimes the hardest person to let go of isn't someone else. It's the version of you that you outgrew. The one who tolerated too much or believed too little. The one who thought love had to be earned. Growth often looks like betrayal of your old self. But that's what evolution feels like. Uncomfortable honesty. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering differently. It's about looking back without wishing to return. It's realizing that the story still exists, but it no longer defines you. And when you reach that point, when your memories become soft rather than sharp, You know you've turned pain into wisdom. Sometimes you'll think you've let go until a song, a scent, a random day brings it all back. That doesn't mean you failed. Healing isn't linear. It's cyclical. Each time the memory returns, it comes back a little lighter, a little less painful, until one day it's just a story, not a wound. That's the quiet miracle of human resilience. And maybe that's the essence of life itself. Learning to hold and release in rhythm, to give deeply, to love fully, to mourn honestly, and then when the time comes, to open your hands again. Because letting go doesn't end the story. It simply turns the page. You can't force yourself to forget, but you can choose how to remember. You can choose to see endings not as losses, but as transitions, the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. When you stop asking, why did it go? And start asking, what did it teach me? The entire landscape of your past transforms. And maybe that's the secret no one tells you. The act of letting go is never really about the other person, the job, the city, or the moment. It's about reclaiming your freedom from the illusion that you needed them to be whole. You've always been whole. You just forgot for a while. There comes a point where you stop trying to go back and instead begin to walk forward. Even if your legs are trembling, you stop asking if you did something wrong and start realizing that not everything broken was yours to fix. That moment, quiet and invisible, is when letting go turns into liberation. The human brain hates uncertainty. It wants closure, wants answers, wants clean endings. But life is full of commas, not periods. We carry half-finished stories inside us, sentences that will never end the way we imagined. And yet in that unfinishedness, we find the space to grow. Because when something leaves your life, it doesn't just take something from you, it also frees space for something you haven't yet met. One of the hardest lessons psychology teaches us is that closure is not something others give you. It's something you decide to create within yourself. Waiting for an apology that never comes or a message that stays unsent ties your peace to someone else's awareness. Letting go means releasing that expectation. It means saying, even without your words, I choose to heal. Many people fear that if they let go, they'll lose everything: memories, love, meaning. But it's the opposite. You actually keep the essence of what mattered, stripped of its pain. That's how emotional integration works. When we process our experiences instead of resisting them, the raw pain converts into insight. The event doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It becomes part of your emotional intelligence, not your emotional injury. The world constantly tells us to move on, but moving on isn't about pretending it didn't matter. It's about admitting that it did, that it shaped you, that it carved depth into places you didn't know existed. Growth doesn't erase history. It rewrites your relationship with it. Letting go also means forgiving yourself for not knowing better at the time. We judge our past selves as if they had the clarity we have now. But clarity is born from experience, not the other way around. You couldn't have made the choices you make today without living through the ones you regret. That's not failure. That's feedback from your own evolution. There's a term in psychology called self-compassion. And it's not just kindness, it's realism. It's saying, I was doing my best with the awareness I had. It's choosing to see yourself not as a villain or victim, but as a human being learning how to navigate impermanence. The truth is, the mind clings because it mistakes familiarity for safety. But holding on to what's gone keeps you rehearsing old fears instead of rehearsing new courage. You can't step into tomorrow if one foot is still tied to yesterday. Think of your life as a river. Every person, every experience, every dream that comes along is like a leaf floating beside you. Some drift away gently. Others get caught in the current and disappear. You don't dive in after every leaf. You trust that the river knows where it's going. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Participating in life without drowning in it. Letting go is not passive. It's an active decision to stop fueling the thoughts that hurt you. It's choosing not to reopen the wound each morning by checking who moved on faster or what could have been. The brain will always chase unfinished stories, but healing begins the moment you refuse to keep writing the same chapter. There's an old saying in cognitive psychology: neurons that fire together wire together. The more you replay something painful, the more your brain strengthens that emotional connection. But when you start redirecting your focus toward gratitude, toward learning, toward what's here now, you literally rewire your brain. You weaken the circuit of attachment and strengthen the circuit of peace. That's why mindfulness helps. It's not about sitting still. It's about observing without clinging. When you feel a wave of sadness or nostalgia, you acknowledge it instead of drowning in it. You say, "Ah, here's that memory again," and let it pass. The more you practice this, the more your brain learns that emotion is temporary, not a command. Some days, letting go will feel easy, like a deep breath. Other days, it will feel like pulling roots from the earth. That's normal. Healing doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals. You'll revisit the same pain from higher levels of understanding until it no longer defines you. There's a quiet dignity in release. You stop chasing explanations and start appreciating the mystery of timing. You begin to see that some chapters don't close because they were wrong, but because you learned what they came to teach you. Every person, every season, every heartbreak leaves behind a mirror. You either spend your life staring into it, or you learn to see through it. What most people don't realize is that letting go doesn't always mean losing contact with someone. Sometimes it means changing the emotional contract. You stop expecting what they can't give. You stop needing them to complete a sentence that was always yours to finish. It's not rejection, it's recalibration. And one day you'll notice something subtle. You'll drive past an old place and feel nothing but gratitude. You'll hear the song that once broke you, and just humongous. You'll remember the face that used to make your heart ache and smile instead. That's how you know you've healed. Not when you forget, but when. Remembering no longer hurts. Psychologically, that's emotional extinction. The neural pathways that once triggered pain lose their charge. The memory remains, but the suffering dissolves. It's proof that your brain can heal, that emotion isn't permanent, and that peace isn't found. It's practiced. Letting go also demands courage because it means accepting that some stories will never make sense. Humans crave narrative closure, but life often refuses to provide it. People leave mid-sentence. Endings come without explanations, and sometimes there's no deeper meaning, only change. But there's beauty even in unanswered questions. They remind us that mystery is a part of being alive. When you stop searching for perfect closure, you open yourself to imperfect beginnings. You start seeing opportunities where grief once lived. You notice that life keeps moving, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Because if time stopped at every heartbreak, none of us would survive our first goodbye. There's also a collective side to letting go. Every culture, every faith, every philosophy has rituals for release. Funerals, farewells, burning letters, closing ceremonies. These aren't random traditions. They exist because the human psyche needs symbolic closure. It's how we teach the brain that something has ended so we can begin again. You can create your own rituals too. Write a letter you'll never send. Bury an object that holds pain. Walk a path you once walked with someone and breathe it in alone. These small acts reprogram the subconscious, signaling that it's time to turn the page. The deeper psychology of letting go reveals something profound. We're not just releasing the past, we're reclaiming the present. Every thought spent in yesterday is attention stolen from today, and the present moment is the only place where real healing exists. Look around. Every tree eventually sheds its leaves. Every tide retreats before it returns. Nature itself runs on cycles of letting go. If you hold on to summer, you miss autumn's beauty. If you mourn winter, you miss spring's rebirth. Maybe we suffer not because life changes, but because we refuse to flow with it. There's a form of wisdom that comes only through loss. It humbles the ego. It shows you that you can survive what you once thought you couldn't. That survival is not about avoidance, but adaptation. You become softer, quieter, less reactive. You stop needing everything to last forever. You realize that impermanence doesn't diminish value. It gives it meaning. Imagine if every song played endlessly without ending. You'd stop listening. It's the ending that makes it beautiful. That's the same truth with people and moments. Their transience is what makes them precious. So when life asks you to let go, it's not taking from you. It's teaching you rhythm. It's reminding you that love isn't measured by permanence, but by presence. That the truest form of strength isn't holding tighter, but opening wider. And in time, you'll start to see letting go not as loss, but as alchemy. The pain turns into insight. The tears water something unseen. You stop asking why you had to lose and start understanding what you were meant to gain. Maybe one day you'll meet the version of yourself who finally learned to stop reaching for what's gone. You'll look in the mirror and see someone lighter, someone freer, someone at peace with the flow of things. That person isn't perfect, but they're real. They've stopped performing healing and started living it. Because letting go isn't a finish line, it's a daily practice. Every morning you wake up and choose not to carry what's too heavy. Every evening you set down what no longer fits. It's an ongoing conversation between you and the moment. Do I still need this? And as you keep choosing peace, your heart learns the art of release. You'll stop fearing endings because you'll understand they're just transformations in disguise. You'll stop demanding closure because you'll realize the story never truly ends. It just changes form. The psychology of letting go is the psychology of freedom. When you let go of what you can't control, you return to what you can. Your perception, your presence, your purpose. You begin to see that every goodbye carries a hidden blessing, every ending a subtle invitation to start again. So if you're standing in the space between what was and what's next, take a breath. You don't need to rush healing. You don't need to have it all figured out. Just trust the release. Trust that what's leaving is making room for what's meant to arrive. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll wake up and realize you're not holding on anymore. You'll just be living. And it will feel like sunlight finally reaching a room that's been dark for far too long, because that's what letting go really is. Not the end of love, but the beginning of peace.